Oh yeah, they call me double Q. 'Cause I don't go outside for nothing. No one's gonna make me leave this room.
So hello everyone and welcome back to the AOR Talkshow episode number 2 for season 12. We're here today to discuss what happened at the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne last Sunday and also preview the Bahrain Grand Prix that will happen tomorrow. But nevertheless, introducing my partner today, Niran. Do you want to present yourself?
Yeah. I'm as always, I guess, joining Pep of the PlayStation side of things in the talk show today. As Pepper said, basically covered everything. We're going to be talking about the first Grand Prix of the season and the PS4 side of things, and also previewing the second round of the season, which, due to the fact we've got a normal calendar again this year, is going to be Bahrain, and I'm guessing a night race, unless the organisers are feeling particularly creative with their time of day editor. But nevertheless, yeah, that'll be a cool night race. And we'll be previewing that, telling you about the track and all that sort of stuff, and also results in the past two, after we've gone over the results of a pretty, I guess, kind of hectic PlayStation 4 opener for Season 12 of AOR. But we are not alone today, myself and Pepper. We're joined by Dan, who'll also be going over stuff in this, won't you?
Yes, I will. Obviously, I raced in the race last Sunday, so I'll just be giving probably a unique insight into what happened on the track at Albert Park.
Yeah, I mean, as given, you raced and you were in the race itself, you probably know a lot more about it than myself and Pepper do, so you'll be able to guide us through it a little bit more for the people watching at home. But nevertheless, yep, we're going to, I guess, get straight into things, really. There isn't too much to talk about. And also, for those that were wondering as well in the comment section last time, we will have the results of the second tier, potentially third tier, I don't know, up on the screen in the background. We'll have the lower tiers. We won't necessarily talk about them because we don't know what actually happened in the races, but we'll have the results on the screen, the standings, so you can get to know some of the drivers in tiers that aren't the first one. And also for those that are racing in those tiers, you don't feel as if you're left out whatsoever, because we'll be covering those as well. But yes, getting into the first race then of Tier 1, and it was, I'd say it was a pretty interesting race. It was a pretty interesting race, I guess, and a pretty interesting qualifying session. We had Jim Nervo tanked and we on pole in the Renault by 0.3.
Well, that wasn't a surprise, really, was it?
No, I guess not. I mean, we all know his pace is ridiculous, but 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, I found a 20 when I saw it come up. So obviously, like, imagine you're 7.5 minutes into qualifying. You're trying to push as hard as you can, and you see a 24.4 come up. That is deeply depressing for everyone in that session, because that was by far and away the fastest I've ever seen anyone go. So that shocked me a lot.
You see that lap time come up and you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna retire from the session now. I mean, the Nervo tank taking a ridiculous lap time around Australia. Unsurprisingly, I guess, when you're going to set a 1:24.4, you're not exactly going to get challenged in the qualifying session. So he grabbed pole. We had Alex, the Ukrainian driver, as well in the Red Bull. He was second, showing really good pace. And as Dan mentioned, wait, did he mention, or he was talking? You know what? Forget it. Dan was talking a minute ago, and Dan himself managed to get third with a 1:24.9. So a pretty decent lap time there as well. We saw Kian in the second, and the Renaults take fourth. So 2 Renaults in the top 4, which is, I guess, pretty daunting for everyone else when it comes to the Constructors' Championship, realistically, to have 2 cars from the same team that quick. Our boss as well in the Haas from Serbia, he was P5. Then Big Shot, Ali Kid, Dissemple, and then B Colt and Mazais, the familiar name, the Latvian in the Ferrari, in P10. Running out the top 10, the gap of 1.4 seconds covering everyone. It was a dry session as well. Was there anything out of the ordinary that happened in the session?
No, not as far as I'm aware. I'd just like to point out, though, that from like 3rd to maybe about 9th is only 5/10, and I think we're going to see this a lot throughout the season, this very close midfield battle. And it's gonna separate out a lot of drivers, because obviously 3rd to 10th is a big gap in terms of grid positions, and it's all just about nailing your lap in qualifying to make sure that you're gonna end up with a good race.
Yeah, definitely. It's really cool to see that sort of small gap as well. We don't want like big gaps between drivers because ultimately one lap pace does kind of decide what sort of pace you're gonna have in a race. So it's nice to see drivers being split by such a little amount in qualifying and then having having close races in the race. We saw it in all the categories really. There were really close races between basically everyone and good battles throughout the grid. Obviously we've got larger grids this year as well, so that's always going to contribute to it. But between P5 and P6, 6,000ths of a second covering them. So it's nice to see stuff like that. Two drivers didn't set a time. Willie 1:02.00 in the Sauber didn't set a lap time from Finland, and also Bimu as well in the Mercedes. They didn't set lap time, so they started on the back row of the grid. We had a dry qualifying session and we had a dry race, and I'm gonna be really cruel here. I'm gonna be really, really cruel, and I'm gonna allow Dan to talk us through the first lap.
Brilliant. Thanks. Great memories there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I went there.
Okay. So obviously at the front of the grid, as my phone goes, at the front of the grid, Nervo Tank actually got what is referred to as a lag start. So basically, his 5 lights go out later than everyone else's. So this obviously had quite an big impact. So Alex in second got a great start, was able to take the lead in towards turn 1. Obviously me, as Dan, had to avoid Nervo Tank, go to the right, but unfortunately Kian had come up the inside of me. That made it 3 wide in towards turn 1, and I'm sure you can guess who came worst out of that situation. It was me. So I was facing backwards in towards turn 1. And I think there was a major incident as well at turn 3 on lap 1. Jonas, I think, missed his braking point by quite a lot and smashed into the McLaren of Ali Kid and maybe took a couple of other cars out as well. So yeah, it was definitely a hectic lap 1, and there was 3 or 4 of us that had to make a pit stop at the end of lap 1, and we were already about half a lap down. So yeah, quite a poor start for some of us.
Yeah, it's always the problem when you've got such a big grid, and especially when someone gets a lag start. I mean, it wasn't his fault, it was a poor start and it caused that domino effect behind. Lots of big incidents, as you alluded to, on lap 1, and down into turn 3. Jonas missed his braking zone by the circumference of Jupiter, and piled into everyone else. And I mean, the thing was with this incident was he was trying to make a move, and I think it was B Colt in the manor. And because B Colt himself had braked quite late, you're always, when you're on the inside and you're on the first lap, you're determined to make a move, and you just brake that tiny bit later. B Colt had outbroken himself slightly anyway, so it was always going to be a disaster braking later than him. And he crashed into, I think it was a McLaren, I think, I'm not entirely sure who he crashed into, but he caused, unfortunately, it did cause quite a decent incident, and I think he actually broke his front wing, so I mean, bit of a shame. But yeah, lap 1 was pretty hectic.
I have a great reference for what happened in turn 3.
Yeah.
For those who see YouTuber Championship, Bahrain,
yes.
turn 1 into the barrier, just can imagine that to Australia. It's exactly the same.
I think that's a solid
I don't think Jonas was planning on doing it like Scott was, though. I think Scott had a clear plan of what he was trying to do to Jonas, but
Yeah, it was. It was the same outcome. Realistically, unfortunately, it was basically the same outcome. But yeah, as you said, Alex ended up taking the lead from lap 1 because of Nervo Tank's poor start. I guess obviously when you're starting on the inside and the person to your left gets a shocker of a start, it's always going to be the person in third place that suffers quite a lot instead of the guy starting in second. But Alex took the lead and pretty comfortably, I guess, held on to it. I don't know massively what happened at the front of the grid, but I know that it was Alex, Nervo Tank, Disimpele and Kian who were towards the top of the field, and especially the top 3 who were covered by a fairly small amount.
I think Big Shot was actually up there at one point, but I think he had a little bit of an incident with Nervo Tank. I think that made him get, if you played the game, an orange front wing on one side, so that is quite substantial front wing damage, and I think that meant he had to make an earlier than planned pit stop, which kind of compromised his race. So I think he'd have definitely been up there for that top 3 battle if that hadn't happened to him.
Yeah, that's frustrating actually, because that's the type of front wing damage where you actually have to physically contemplate, should I come in and change it? Because the problem is it costs so much time on this game. It costs like 7 or 8 seconds when you have to change your front wings. You have to know that whatever damage you've got is going to cost you 7 or 8 seconds throughout the rest of the race. But I guess if it was early on, then it's probably worth it, but it's always going to compromise you. So yeah, that's a shame for the Ferrari driver. But Yeah, again, I don't know whether there are any other sort of incidents going on. I know there were different strategies going on. Some worked better than others. I think Nummer in the Williams started on medium tyres. That didn't particularly work out for him. I think there were a few guys that started on softs as well. It seemed as if the guys on the that started on the super softs, set their best lap on a super softs, probably did better in the end in the race.
Yeah, I think from quite early on, on lap 1, the top 5 were able to break away, obviously after the turn 3 sort of incident, so that enabled them to get the gap they needed and then able to push on the super softs. So when they re-emerged, I think they were emerging to clear air. So I think that made the strategy element maybe was spoilt slightly because of the incidents that occurred on lap 1. I think we'll see in future races when guys outside the top 10 able to start on harder tyres, then we're going to really see strategies come into play.
Well, this is the cool thing that we have now with the 3-tyre compound dynamic. Obviously last year it was really, with previous AOR seasons, because of the tyre regs in real life, it's always been quite, you either start on the harder compound or you start on the softer compound and then you finish on the opposite one. Whereas this year there's so many different strategies that can be going on. Because we had an all-dry race, there was a lot of scope for people to try different things. Australia isn't necessarily a track, I don't think, that has a ridiculously overpowered strategy in comparison to ones maybe like China or Belgium or whatever. But yeah, it was. I guess that was a little bit of a shame to have that spoiled. One thing I noticed as well, there were a lot of penalties going on throughout the race, and this was also the case on the Xbox side from what I saw. I know obviously they have strict penalty regulations when it comes to corner cutting, and I think turn 1 was catching a lot of people out when it came to exceeding track limits.
I will just point this one out, okay? People will always breakboard thieves, basically, in this race. You might not have read the forums, but if you do, the amount of people that have moaned about the breakboards going missing. So the 100-metre breakboard at Australia, which is the crucial one, and then I don't know which corner it was else, but I think after the chicane, that one had gone as well. The fast chicane, and then you're braking down. Yeah,
and then down into the turn, into that right-hander,
that had gone as well. So pretty much two of the key braking points on the track, the braking board just went. So yeah, it was a bit of a problem for some of us, and obviously
I can imagine it was strategic. Someone else must have thought, you know what?
They had a different braking point.
Myself and everyone here. Yeah,
so I think that's probably why we saw higher than average penalties. Apart from Theo GR in the manor was able to get no penalties at all, so fair play to him.
That's pretty impressive actually. When everyone else around you is getting 3 seconds, 6 seconds, 12 seconds for Number as well in the Williams by the end. It's a bit of a it's impressive to be able to get no penalties at all. I mean, again, I'm going to have to come back to you here, Dan. I don't really know how the rest of the race particularly played out. I know the results, obviously, and we'll go over those a little bit later. But obviously, you were on a comeback drive along with all the other people who had, front wing damage. Ben as well, who broke his front wing. And trying to come back through the order. How did the rest of the race play out in terms of the second half of it?
Well, from at the front of the field, I think it got a little bit separated out, but Alex, I think, had very good race pace, just able to sort of maintain the gap. I think near the tank, maybe a couple of tenths of that quicker, but Alex was just able to maintain the gap and was able to hold on to the win. In the midfield, I think it got quite separated out, as you might be able to see on the results. Sort of from 9th to 12th, there was quite a key battle there, and some sort of penalties impacted on the finishing results. B. Colt got a puncture on the final lap of the race, which demoted him from about 6th to 10th, which is massive in terms of points. So he's dropped about 7 there. So yeah, a lot of drama sort of towards the end of the race when we saw the strategies merging between people who've gone on 3 or 2 stops.
Yeah, that was cruel as well for B. Colt. You mentioned to get that punch on the final lap of the race. He did get 10th in the end due to penalties, but yeah, it could have been a lot better for him. We haven't covered the retirements as well. Our boss, who started 5th on the grid in the Haas, he unfortunately crashed out of the race. So did Mazais as well, who you guys will remember if you watched last season's AOR Talkshow in the Ferrari. He didn't finish the race either, so they were 17th and 18th respectively. We've sort of alluded to the results, so I guess we might as well go through them now. It was Alex who won the race in the end by 6 seconds, so he gets the full 25 points for the first race of the season. the Renault of Jim Nervo-Tank, or just Nervo-Tank for short, I guess. Me and Pepper really discussed him as the favourite for the championship, I guess, or certainly one of the favourites for the championship. In the driver lineups video that we did last week, and it's certainly a strong showing from him after a poor start. He gets second place. Desimpele from Belgium in the Mercedes, he was third place, still within 10 seconds though of the race leader, including that 6-second penalty, because obviously he got 3 seconds more in penalties. I don't know whether that's included in the time difference. But still pretty close to the race winner in the end. The second of the Renaults as well, Kian, the Irishman, he was in P4, so again, as we mentioned, and rather dauntingly, Renault having a very, very good race and, of course, qualifying session.
Go Banana!
Yeah, the Bananas are repping for this season already so far, 2nd and 4th for the Bananas. Big Shot in 5th. In the Ferrari, then we had Ali Kid, Big C, Theo G, B-Mew and B-Colt round out the top 10. Dan, just guttingly, a penalty on the final lap, costing him 10th place and a chance of a point. And then it was the Sauber of Willie 10200, Nummer, Jonas, Mayhem Madness and Demon, who finished a lap down, or Ben, in the Force India, completing the drivers to finish the race. And as we mentioned, Mazais and our boss retiring. And obviously, the Drivers' Championship is exactly the same.
Shout out to Bimu though. He gained 10 positions in that race, so by far the one who got most positions out of their starting position. Big C in 2nd from 15th to 7th, and Zimpele from 8th to 3rd. So pretty decent results, of course. Then we have Dan, who went from 3rd to 11th, but we're not going on that way, just pointing out the positives for someone. But nothing really to add in terms of driver standings, because they're just the same as the race results. As long as the constructors were concerned, Renault with a considerable margin, because they were pretty much the only... No, Mana... I think Mana was the only team that also got double points finish, but it was 8th and 10th, so not really a big amount of points there. But Renault, definitely a great result for them from the start of the season, while we thought about maybe Force India and Ferrari having good chances. I mean, they're gonna need some luck.
Yeah. Let's
just say that.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, luck definitely eluded both Ferrari and Force India in the first race of the season. That's undoubted. They definitely won't finish where they are. Certainly Force India. I mean, Ferrari may end up finishing 4th, but I would be, Dan, to be honest with you, you need to pull your socks off if you're going to finish 8th in the Constructors' Championship. But, yeah, I'm sure they'll be challenging Renault at some point when they get a bit more luck than they did in the Australian Grand Prix. I was going to say Austrian Grand Prix for some reason. We'll gloss over that. Red Bull are only 5 points behind Renault, technically, in the Constructors' Championship, because Alex won the race and got the full 25 points. But he's not going to be able to he's not going to be able to challenge Renault on his own unless he has a very dominant season. So he'll need some help from his teammate as far as the season goes. Mercedes currently sat in 3rd on 17 points. Ferrari are on 10 in 4th, and we've got McLaren and Williams, who all had single point scoring finishes. As you mentioned, Pepper Mana got a double point scoring finish, but it was only 8th and 10th, so they're sat on 5 in 7th place, and it's Force India, Sauber and Haas yet to score.
Poor showing there from... I mean, considering turn 1 and turn 3, you kinda understand some results, but that is basically what happened at the season opener in Australia. Sadly, didn't have rain like Xbox, for example, but it proved to be a rather interesting race, at least on lap 1 especially.
Jesus, can you imagine what lap 1 would have been if it had rained? Can you imagine?
No.
I mean, just utter I mean, oh god, Dan would have lost a wheel as well, not just his front wing. That would have
lost his mind.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was bad. It was carnage enough as it was on the first lap, and I think some of the drivers are actually trying to get used to having large grids, especially perhaps some of the people that were returning from PS3 last season, who are used to going down into turn 1 with 8 or 9 other drivers. When you've got 17 other drivers around you, trying to fit into one corner, it's always quite difficult. But yeah, we certainly had an interesting race, definitely an interesting lap 1, and nice to see it's cool to see the drivers that we were expecting to challenge for the title, barring Dan, who we were sure will
I will not challenge
as well.
for the title.
Dan will challenge for the title, and establishing themselves.
Breaking news!
Breaking news! Dan challenges for the title.
Breaking news! I will beat Pepper's 10th place record. Breaking news.
Well, you finished in 11th so far, so that's not going well. But you're making
you heard it here first.
11th place record. Actually, no, don't, because then you won't rack up any points.
You're even worse than me.
That says a lot. Oh, man, I'm firing shots at everyone.
At least
Anyway,
I'm in tier 1.
enough of firing shots. Yeah, tier 1.
Yeah.
Should we have the results of the other tiers up in the background? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, you can see.
They've probably been up for a little bit whilst we were rambling just then, and because obviously we want you guys to be able to fully absorb them and take them in. Instead of just flashing them on the screen for like 6 seconds and then they're gone. But we probably had them on the screen for a little bit, and you guys can see who's done well. Obviously, again, take into account the drivers' championships will be exactly the same as the finishing standings because it was only the first race of the season, so maybe not go into too much depth about the drivers' standings. Yes, I guess we've reviewed as much as we can review now. Should we have a little from the Australian Grand Prix? I guess we might as well head straight on into the second race of the season, which is Bahrain, and preview that.
Yeah, lovely track, night race, first night race of the season out of the 3, including Singapore and Abu Dhabi. In terms of racing, I think Bahrain will give us a much more exciting race because it's not as technical and it has great overtaking points, like very long straights. It should be possible to keep a train going during the races, and it's also special because it's at night. I mean, it's a different kind of environment, and I'm sure because of the nature of the track, it will be a lot easier to keep several fights going on during a race compared to Australia. And you don't really expect rain at Bahrain, so
I think that is one thing we can definitely rule out is precipitation in the Bahrain Grand Prix. I don't think I've ever seen, unless someone switched on rain, I don't think I've ever seen across any F1 game a wet race around Bahrain. If someone has, then let us know, but I'm fairly sure that hasn't happened. We can expect another dry race and another dry qualifying session like we did in Australia. That'll probably be the case. What's the third round of the season? The third round of the season is China. Well, sometimes there's a bit of rain around there. We could get our first shower of the season in China, but we're definitely not going to get it in Bahrain.
No,
definitely not whatsoever. But yeah, I hope you guys are looking forward to the Bahrain Grand Prix as far as PlayStation is concerned. Well, we're probably expecting the same guys that challenged for good positions in Australia to be challenging again in Bahrain. The top 4 or 5 drivers there will definitely be trying to be the top 4 or 5 drivers in the Bahrain Grand Prix as well. Drivers who had a little bit less luck as well, like Ben and Mazais and Dan and B Colt as well, who are all running fairly well and had good qualifying sessions as well. Will be challenging certainly in the top 8 or whatever during that race. So we'll be hoping.
Same tyre strategy.
Tyre strategy
as well from Australia. It's the super softs and mediums, but obviously because of it's a night race and because the track is not as demanding, also because of track temperature, we should probably see more super soft and soft running.
No. The super softs are fast. I've not done any practice, just point that one out. But from what I've
no pressure.
What other people have said, the super softs really aren't looking to last very long. Like people lap 4 to maybe like lap 6 for your first pit stop window if you're starting on super softs. They aren't going to last very long. I think a lot of people are going to be wanting to switch onto the soft and medium, which may be a little bit slower in the first couple of laps, but be more durable and more of a consistent race tyre.
I'm just wanting to ask, does the rule of if you start in a top 10, you have to start on the qualifying tyres, does that actually apply in short qualifying and online? So do you think we'll get a lot of people actually trying to do qualifying on the soft tyres?
I honestly don't know. Trying to predict that is quite impossible. Because obviously, I don't know how much people have played the game who watch this, but you can only select a maximum of 1 soft tyre for qualifying. And trying to nail a lap on one lap. So you've got one lap in a session is pretty hard. So people may go out, do a lap on softs, and then consider, is that good enough? And then if not, go out on super softs at the end of the session.
Yeah, and then just take the hit in the race.
Personally, I found it very disappointing because, you look at the qualifying results at Australia and it's like one soft and everyone on super softs, and I was like, what is the different strategies we were thinking of? Like, I genuinely thought this tire allocation thing would bring like more exciting strategies, more out of the ordinary, and we just look at the qualifying, everyone on super softs.
I think we will get more exciting strategies, but they won't originate from qualifying. So what I mean by that is you won't get people starting on tyres because they did a lap on a certain set in qualifying. I think the way the Codemasters have sort of coded the tyres almost this year is the softer tyre is very quick on one lap pace, so much so that you don't actually, it's almost not worth it starting or trying to do quali on the slower tyres. But then in the race they're also ridiculously undurable unless you're in Canada or in Monaco or whatever. So we'll get a lot of split strategies in the race, so people coming in at the same time but putting on different sets of tyres, but I don't think you'll get too many people starting on different tyres, certainly people that are starting in the top 10. I just think that's the way the game is this year in comparison to real life, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I would like some guys. I'm not saying for people to qualify on mediums because that's just...
That would be intriguing. That would be intriguing.
It's probably something I would try and do in one race or another.
You can't. It's
realistically,
Oh yeah, you can't. Yeah, because it's a tyre allocation. Yeah, you only get 2 sets of super softs and a set of softs in qualifying. So you don't actually get allocated medium tyres. You only get allocated them for the race and then practice.
That is such.
I think it's the same in real life though. I think it's the same in real life. It's not like you don't just get like a bundle of tyres for the whole weekend, which is what I thought it was. I actually thought that was the case, but you only get certain tyres for certain sessions. You don't just.
I don't have the excuse of picking the wrong tyre for the qualifying.
Exactly. There's an excuse, John. But yeah, anyway. So I suppose we might, just because of the lack of durability of the super soft, we may possibly get a few people at least trying to go, quali on the softs, but we'll see about that, and we'll see whether they actually do end up setting their best lap on the soft. Okay, so we've talked about the strategy. Then I suppose now we might as well talk about the track itself. And I was just wondering whether really it's a track that people generally enjoy, or maybe not so much.
Personally, I love that track. I won there last season, but it was a bit because of a certain collision on the last lap at turn 1 between the two Williamses.
Williamsgate, yeah.
But that was quite a good race. But it is a track that allows great racing there, and it doesn't. It's not as harsh on tires like other tracks, so you kind of can fight without too many worries. But it's not a very complicated track. You have 4 massive straights.
Yeah.
You have like 3 heavy braking points, like turn 1, turn 8, and turn 10.
Yeah.
Turn 10 is going to be lovely. To see if someone tries and get some overtakes done there. But obviously I would be expecting overtakes at turn 1 and turn 4 as they're the main overtaking spots of the track. But I think personally, in terms of action, if we don't have a very spread out field, I think it has the potential to be one of the most action-packed races of the season, personally.
Yeah, definitely. The Bahrain, the front straight has always been massively overpowered when it comes to overtaking people. Slipstream, DRS, it's a long straight anyway. It's always been probably one of the greatest places to overtake on any Codemasters game ever, including 130R as well in Japan. The slipstream there is ridiculous. It's a very similar thing in Bahrain. So I think we are, as long as the field isn't too split up by like a first lap accident or just generally because of pace, although I highly doubt that with 18 people on the grid or 20 people potentially on the grid. You know, it's not going to be massively spread out from the get-go. Yeah, we should see a lot of overtaking there, and then obviously moves being completed down into turn 4, because if people are, you know, going for switchbacks or maybe still alongside each other through the whole turn 1 to 3 complex, then, you know, we'll see more overtakes down into turn 4. You never know, that second DRS straight as well out of turn 10 if people make mistakes.
Yeah.
Is it turn 10? The one with the horrible left-hander. Yeah, we might.
I love it.
If we see, you know, the odd person making a mistake through there, obviously there's a DRS straight away afterwards, so could see the odd overtake down into turn 11. But obviously the home straight be the main part, and we should definitely see a lot of overtaking throughout the race.
Yeah, agreed. And it should be a great race. I'm not sure if you have a live stream for it. I'll try and put that information on the screen if I have it when I'm editing, but it's still quite unknown. I know PC had it, but I think Xbox and PS4 were a bit, you know, they didn't have people when it mattered, so we'll have to try and see that for tomorrow. But nevertheless, I think that's it for today.
I reckon that's about it. We've done a very thorough review, and we've done a very thorough preview as well for Bahrain.
But yeah, obviously don't forget to check out basically the same thing, but for PC and Xbox. Xbox of course with Niran, James, Chris, and maybe JD. We'll have to see about that. But of course, the new addition to our crew, keeps growing every day, which is amazing.
We're going to have like 25 people by the end of the season, you know, because just people keep wanting to join. So we'll keep tabs on people who want to take part and want to be, you know, part of talk shows and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see. It's pretty cool to see the interest, and from you guys as well. So you guys watching as well, supporting the talk show on everyone's channels as well. JD obviously uploaded it, so there's a lot of interest from people who are subscribed to TRL Limitless as well. Yeah, it's really motivating to see everyone enjoying this idea and this project so much.
Yeah, I mean, your response was just blew me out of the window. I mean, I would like to thank you here. Just a quick thank you for surpassing already 150 on subscribers, like in 1 week, which is absolutely great. So thank you so much for that support. Thank you for just blowing my expectations for the second season of the talk show, and just of course don't forget to show some love to the other guys as well, including Niran, Dan, Shane, everyone on the team. Links will be in the description, and don't forget to follow the talk show on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, and YouTube on the other guys' channels as well. But I'm pretty sure that is it for today's episode. Once again, don't forget to check the other two. If you're on SoundCloud, don't forget to check the video if you want to, and the other way around, if you're in the way to your job, just listen on SoundCloud. It will be just as good. So I think it's the end, but we'll be back next week, and we'll see you then.
Goodbye.